Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's Movie Vlog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today I need to get something and make something very clear. So there have been a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation, I would say borderline conspiracy theory stuff going on about how Captain Marvel and Disney are buying out all of the tickets and are only selling Captain Marvel tickets, and they're shutting out everything else, and everyone's saying, oh, but look, I'm open right now on the Thursday showing, and look, it's only Captain Marvel. Here is the thing. Let me just say right now, I am not going after any channels that have covered this in any way whatsoever. I honestly think they were looking at something and they were thinking to themselves, all right, this just doesn't seem right. Something seems off. But I think it's because they probably have never really paid attention to it before. And I honestly, again, don't think that they have any ill will. I don't think they were trying to spin anything. I don't think they were trying to lead anyone astray. I know that SC Reviews cover this, and I have no problems with him. He's a cool dude. Go check out his channel. He's an awesome guy. But he did a video on this, and I do have to correct some things because there were some things in there that just don't really point out what is actually going on here as far as pre-sales and how pre-sales actually work. Let me give you a little bit of a background to myself, who I am, and just where I come from. I am someone who worked at a movie theater for about 3 years. In that process, I became a supervisor, which meant that I had access not only to internal documents, internal emails, but also it meant that I was at one point in my job as a supervisor promoted to be someone in charge of marketing as well. So I do have some idea of what I'm talking about here. I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to how these movie ticket sales work. And so I wanted to be able to explain it to you guys so that way everything is made clear. I've had so many people on Twitter trying to say, oh my gosh, Odin, look, there's all this stuff going on and they're shutting it out and they're shutting Alita Battle Angel down. They're shutting all these things down. And I'm like, guys, stop. Like, I'm getting so many of these things and none of it is true. None of it is actually based off of anything that is actually factual. Now, again, if there are certain things going on in other countries, I don't know how other countries work. I just know how my local theater works, and I'm pretty confident that how my theater works is how every other theater works, because every studio is going to work essentially in the same way. The only time that might ever change is if a country has certain qualifications, if a country has certain qualifications. For example, China is very specific about how much a studio can make off of their ticket sales, but also how long a movie can be in theaters, etc. They have a lot of control over that. In the United States and other countries, it's a lot more different, and therefore anything outside of China or any other country like that is going to be more streamlined. It's going to be more commonsensical. So the question then is asked, why then is it that every time I go to Fandango or any other site, but let's talk about Fandango because everyone's saying, oh, Fandango and Rotten Tomatoes are connected, and so therefore, oh my gosh, we're connecting all these dots in this conspiracy theory and it's working, everything's making sense, we're connecting all the dots. Here is the problem. Fandango gets its movie times from the local theaters. So for example, right now I have an AMC pulled up, AMC Elmwood Palace 20, which is my local theater. Up here it says very clearly that the only tickets available are for Captain Marvel and also for Tyler Perry's A Madea Family Funeral, and this is for the Thursday night showings. So why is it that only Captain Marvel is showing up here? Why is it that when I click on Friday, only Captain Marvel and only Tyler Perry show up here? Does that mean that those are the only movies coming out? It's a 20-screen megaplex. How does that work? No, that does not mean it's the only movie coming out. Here is how things work. When before a week's worth of movies are actually scheduled, this is what normally happens. Every theater has a booker. Let's call them a booker. And the booker's job is to communicate to the various studios and try to figure out, okay, how many shows, how many showtimes do you want? What times do you want them? Do you want a certain number of prime shows, for example, between 6 and 8 p.m., those times that most people go to see them on weekends? How many of those do you want? How many overall show times do you want? So basically, the booker makes these conversations, has these conversations with the studios, and then eventually when the booker has all these conversations done, he sends all of that information to a local theater, to the general manager, senior manager, etc. One of the people at a theater, normally it's a general manager, sometimes they split the duties with somebody else. It's one of their jobs to actually put in manually the schedule for that week. And so therefore, they're given a list. They're given a list that says, okay, Captain Marvel, we've made a deal that says Captain Marvel has to have at least 20 showtimes in any given day. The next movie, Medea, it needs to have 10 showtimes in any given day. Alita, it's been out for a while, it's not doing as well, it needs to only have 2 showtimes in a given day. And so the theater gets that information and then tries to plug in, essentially, all of these different movies into all these different showtimes, which I can only imagine is a crazy process. So glad I never had to schedule during my time working at this theater. But I know that basically whenever they were in schedule mode, you could not talk to them. because of all the things that they were trying to figure out. Because again, they have to fit certain number of time slots that they have to, because of the contracts, because of the deals that are being made, that they have to offer for any given film. So basically what we have here is we have Captain Marvel that has already booked in advance, because bigger movies, they book not just the week before, but well in advance. So Disney Studios and the booker for any theater, for this right now, we're talking about AMC Palace 20. The booker for the theater made a deal already worked these things out about what shows and how many shows on a Thursday preview, and also how many shows on the average day that the movie was going to have. And then they had that information, put it in early, ergo that's why you have pre-sales. That's why certain movies, especially bigger movies by bigger production companies, you can buy tickets for well in advance. Most movies, most theaters, most studios don't do this for regular films. So what happens with regular films? I'll tell you. For us, for our local theater, what it was is that we would basically get an email. We would get the information sent to us from the booker about, basically the list I talked about all the different showtimes being, basically, as I said, Captain Marvel has to have 20 showtimes. This next movie has to have 13 showtimes. This one has to have 10 showtimes. This one has to have this, that, etc. And he gets all that information. And that usually gets put in around Monday. Usually gets sent in late Monday, between like midnight Monday into Tuesday. Again, it works on a very late schedule, which means that when the person gets to work on Tuesday, they're basically spending all Tuesday morning and all day essentially making that schedule, making sure the show that every movie has the exact show times that it's been contractually obligated to, to actually have. That they're all working within the time slots too, that you have a certain number of prime showings for Captain Marvel. So for example, you see right here that on this Friday, it has the 7 o'clock showing. It has a 6 o'clock showing as well. It also has a 7:45 showing. So obviously it had to meet a certain number of showings. You also have, of course, contracts with IMAX, and that's when everything else becomes so much more complicated. But again, as you can see, these all come in advance. Other movies, though, they are also getting put into the schedule. So once again, if your theater right now does not have any other movies available except for Captain Marvel and Tyler Perry's Madea Family Funeral. The reason why is because the booker has not sent the information for what deals they've made with the various studios of the various films for how many showtimes they're supposed to get starting through the next week. So, what does that mean? That means that sometime between Tuesday afternoon and sometimes even as late as Wednesday afternoon, because let's say the booker is behind. Let's say there's some things that don't work out. Let's say the booker is not able to get the list together until early on Tuesday, and that person doesn't get the list until Tuesday afternoon. Oh my gosh, they're working Tuesday afternoon to try and get the schedule out as fast as they possibly can. So normally, though, it works out where it's Monday and Tuesday. Sometimes when there's holidays, that's when it gets even crazier, because obviously that means the schedule is going to be only for a certain period of time, and it's going to be, again, it gets crazy. It gets absolutely crazy. And if this is not making any sense, hey, this is the reason why I wanted to make this video, to try and at least explain it as best I possibly can. So during that time period, when the list finally comes in, then the studio, rather than the theater, so in this case, Elmwood Palace 20. Let's say that I'm the GM over at the Elmwood Palace 20. It's a really cool dude. Let's say that I get this list in this coming Monday, because that's when it would be, this coming Monday, and then I come into work on Tuesday, and then my job all day is to put all of the movies in all 20 screens, fitting all the show times that they have to fit into, and also, let's say there's some movies that aren't doing so well, those are the ones that I have to find kind of the random places. You want to know why movies that have been out for a long time that aren't selling well or have some of the worst show times? It's because the priority is always given to the newest films, because those are the ones that have to fill the time slots first, because they have the most time slots that they have to fill. Which means basically when you have those movies that only are, booked for one showtime a day or two showtimes a day, they usually get some of the worst showtimes available, because basically it's just bottom of the barrel, whatever's left over. Again, that's just how it works. When a movie's been out for a longer period of time, the same thing happens. So on this coming Monday going into Tuesday, by Tuesday afternoon, latest sometime Wednesday afternoon, you will see Fandango will indeed be updated, and you will have not only more films on this Friday, because again, for this theater, it's 20 screens. And if you're going to try and tell me that they're going to buy out over 20 screens just to show these two movies, I'm sorry, that's just not how the business works. That is not how the business works, because just because you are able to put those many screens on there does not mean that people are going to be showing up. You buy and rent the number of screens, the number of showtimes for how much you think the movie overall is going to make. Let's say you overbook it. Well, then by the next week, what you're going to have is you're going to have a tremendous drop in showtimes, potentially even of screens in theaters as well, again, depending on how well or how poorly a film does. But what I'm trying to point out here is this. all the people out there trying to say, oh my gosh, Captain Marvel is being forced down our throats, it's the only movie available. The reason why is because the bookers have not gotten the information to the theaters yet, and that doesn't usually happen until the Monday or Tuesday before the movies actually come out. Anytime that you see movies like this, like people say, well, why is Captain Marvel? Why is Medea up here? Because those were movies that have already been worked out contractually with the theaters to get an extended run, meaning that they get the first priority. The deals have been made. And again, you see this happen with every major studio, with every major release. It's always what happens. Captain Marvel is no exception here. Captain Marvel has about the same number of showings on this Friday, for example, that any other Marvel film would. On this Thursday showing, it has probably just the same amount as well. I would actually say that it actually has less than others, but at the same time, too, it's about on par for what it is. And based on the current selling of the Dolby 7 o'clock showing, that one's almost sold out. That one's pretty much already full. So people are indeed going to show up for this movie. The question is, how many are going to show up? How many of them are actually baked into the numbers? And are those numbers going to actually match how many people show up on the day to buy tickets? But that's, of course, for an entirely different story altogether. But hopefully this makes some sense. The important thing is this. Captain Marvel and Disney, they are not doing some crazy behind-the-scenes conspiracy theory to try and shut out Alita Battle Angel or any other movie from being promoted the same weekend or the same day as Captain Marvel. If you have a theater that has more than one screen, you are going to have, most likely, more than one movie. Now, let's say you only have 2 or 3 screens. Well, in that case, the booker might say, more people are likely to go see Captain Marvel on this day, on this week, and therefore we bought out all 3 theaters. We bought, the studio decided to buy out these showtimes, and therefore that's the only movie that you might get. But it's not going to be because of anything else other than simple business practices. But for most of my people in the United States especially, all I can say is this. When Tuesday comes around, Tuesday afternoon, probably around 4 o'clock is normally the time, at least from where I was. Sometimes it's earlier, depending on how fast someone's able to schedule. But of course, I'm sure, as you've been able to figure out, if you have just been given, let's say in this theater, with the 20 screens, let's say that you're given around 10 to 12, 13 movies, all of which have to fit a certain number of time slots, and you're the one that's in charge of trying to make that all work out with all your screens and figure out if it needs to be in 3D or not 3D, etc. Because guess what? If it's a movie, guess what? The regular 2D version has a certain number of showtimes it has to fit. The IMAX version has a certain number of showtimes it has to fit, and then also the 3D versions have a certain number of showtimes as well. And you're trying to fit this all into the theaters. Not every theater has 3D capabilities. Again, absolute nightmare. So glad I never had to do it. But I wanted to make this video because at the end of the day, there is this. There is no conspiracy theory that Fandango is working together with Disney to shut out other films. At least not at this point. If we get to the point where, in some countries, in some places, Captain Marvel is the only movie being shown, and you can't buy tickets to anything else, then we'll have something to talk about. That's not going to happen, though, because that's never happened before. Just because you have a 1 or 2 screen theater and the only movie being shown is Captain Marvel does not mean it's conspiracy. It means that that's a typical business practice for any other big film. For example, when Endgame comes out, you'll likely have the same situation. If Endgame were coming out right now, you would see the same exact thing. In fact, you'd see probably even more so because they know Endgame is going to be even bigger than Captain Marvel. They might be trying to promote Captain Marvel and say, oh, it's going to make money, it's going to make money, which again, who knows at this point? I personally have my doubts just because of all the backlash that's been going on with it. But Endgame is for sure going to make money, is going to be a huge moneymaker, and so they're going to buy out a lot more showtimes, a lot more screens, putting it in a lot more theaters than Captain Marvel will be. So, hopefully this made sense. If this doesn't make any sense, if you need even more clarification, please let me know in the comments below. But please, guys, stop tweeting at me saying, oh, but I have proof, Look, the only showtimes that I can see are for Captain Marvel. Again, it's Friday. It's a week before the movie opens. It's a week before this movie gets into theaters. All the other movies that are going to be booked, trust me, there's going to be plenty of movies that are going to be booked. Alita and Battle Angel might not get booked. Guys, I hate to break it to you, but it's not making money in the United States, sadly. I wish it was. I love it. I just took my wife to go see it in IMAX 3D the other day, and she loved it. And it was so great to hear her words say, I would love a sequel to this. It made my heart so warm to hear that, because I love when people tell me these things. However, it's not been doing well in certain regions. So if that movie is not showing on March 8th, it is not because Captain Marvel tried to snuff it out. It's not because Disney said, oh, you know what? Everyone's trying to go see Alita Battle Angel instead, so let's try and screw it over. No, it's because people just aren't seeing it. And it's really sad. I want people to see it, but people aren't. Which is the reason why I'm going to say, go see Alita Battle Angel. Guys, if you want the movie to last longer, if you want the movie to get better showtimes, the only way that can happen is if the booker and the theater runners see, wait a minute, this movie's doing much better than the last week. We might need to have more showtimes. Because the only way that's ever going to happen is if the booker, the studio work together to say, hey, this movie's doing really well in this market, is doing really well at the AMC Elmwood Palace 20, is doing really well at the AMC Regal, or not the AMC Regal, in the Regal 13 up in New York City. You know, it's doing really well at these theaters. All right, that means that we're going to keep it at the same level, maybe take one showtime away, or maybe add a showtime. Depends. But this is how the theater system works. And once again, my background is I used to work at a movie theater. I was a supervisor there. I was privy to internal documents. I would actually see these documents. I would actually see these showtimes, because I was also the person that had to put, actually put the movies themselves together. So once the schedule was there, I was the one that came in and then digitally, luckily it was digitally, thank God, was the one that actually put the movie list and playlist together. I actually was starting to learn that towards the end of my time at this theater. So I know all the things that go into it. I know the way that this marketing works. I know how these theater and showtimes work. There's no conspiracy theory, at least as of yet. Please stop tweeting at me claiming such. Because if you're trying to show me, oh, but look, showing you exactly what I'm showing on my screen right now, as I said before, the reason why there's no more movies being shown, except for Tyler Perry's Madea Family Funeral, Captain Marvel opening fan event, which happens a lot, and Captain Marvel, is because the other movies have not been booked. Thursday shows should come in around Monday. Thursday shows usually will be that schedule, because this schedule, basically, they're trying to figure out, are they going to have to add showtimes yet to this schedule? Are the studios, is the booker going to come in and say, hey, Captain Marvel needs to get another showtime added into it? Once that's figured out, then they'll add in the other movies throughout the day based on how many showtimes that they need on that particular day. But you'll see that fill in by Monday. Tuesday, though, by the end of day Tuesday, end of day Wednesday, you'll have the full schedule for Friday all the way through the next week. And the only time that ever doesn't happen is if, let's say, it's a holiday weekend, or let's say there's a holiday the next week, then of course you're only going to have a movie release schedule up until that time, because usually you'll have new releases, new movies coming out, or releases that are getting broader releases overall during a holiday season as well. So hopefully this made sense. Guys, if you like this video, smash that like button, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. Seriously, let me know your thoughts about all this in below. Do you want to have more videos like this? Do you want me to go more in depth about my own personal experience in the theater business? Again, I obviously didn't work in the movie business, even though I did do some work with a very, 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 very small production company. So not really much experience there, but I do have a lot of experience when it comes to the movie theater. If you want to know more about the ins and outs of how it works, why popcorn is so damn expensive, I can break down how movie theaters make their money and why they have to jack up the prices so much in another video. So please let me know in the comments below. Also, guys, seriously, share this video as well. Share it with the people who are pushing this fake news around. I don't like to call it fake news because I'm not trying to say that people like SC Reviews. Josiah Rises actually did a very good video on the Geeks and Gamers channel, kind of explaining that he has a lot of friends that work in the movie theaters, and they're saying that this is not what's happening. This is not the case. However, he still has some doubts. I can tell you guys with 100% surety, most of you are going to have many more movies being shown to buy tickets for when Tuesday comes around. And if that doesn't happen, if Tuesday and Wednesday have passed, and you do not have more than just Captain Marvel showing, then I'd be interested to find out, okay, how many screens do you have and what else might be going on there? But for now, no conspiracy, just the facts. Facts don't care about your feelings, and that is regardless of whether you hate this film or love this film. And obviously, oh, you can't love a film you haven't seen yet. Well, when we know what the actor thinks, when we know what the source material is, when we know what the plot is, when we know what the marketing says, we can have a pretty good idea. Also, there's spoilers everywhere. We can have a pretty good idea that we're not going to like the overall movie, especially when someone comes out and says, oh, yeah, the movie's great. However, Brie Larson sucks because she's lacking any charisma. I don't know. I'll go by their word. But anyway, guys, have a great day. And as always, God bless.